Kelvin Gastelum, guys, if you follow me, you've heard me tell this story 5 times. There's some stories that I just like to tell. Frankie Edgar, taking that kid Ty into the back. You guys heard me tell that one? The way Frankie treated us, he stopped. The show's going live. He's got to defend the world title. He doesn't make the walk. They're on live TV. They're paying every second. He doesn't make the walk because he's not done signing this kid's autograph. Love telling certain stories. But Kelvin Gastelum, now I stay out of it. You got to understand, I am just a fan of Kelvin. But I don't want to be. I want to be more. I'm forcing myself to stay back and to be his fan. But Kelvin has decided that he's going to go to 170 pounds. Now, you'll always hear about weight. You'll hear about reach. The more important of the two is height. What weight class an athlete should be at is much more in relation to his height than it is to his weight or his wingspan, just by example. And Kelvin is the height of a 70-pounder. You guys might remember one of the greats, he doesn't get credit, one of the greats, Johnny Hendricks. Johnny Hendricks, in his moment in the sun, is as good as anybody that ever stepped in there. I mean, Dana White got in a fight with the commission to the point that the governor got involved because Dana thought he beat George St. Pierre. You don't have to go down that road and have that debate with Dana. The fact that the president thought he beat St. Pierre proves my point that he's amongst the best ever, right? When he moved up to 185 pounds, you're not going to see a whole lot of things if you're looking through a resume that you're going to be impressed with. But it wasn't a skill issue. It wasn't a strength issue. It wasn't a reach issue. It was a height issue. And Johnny knows that. Johnny would agree with me. Johnny knew that from his wrestling days. Now, I bring this to you because Kelvin really was an exception. I don't think you're going to find very many 85-pounders that did what Kelvin did with some of his dynamics. My point being, do get 170. I get it. I just made a case for 170. But I also know Kelvin. Right? I know Kelvin. And hard work and discipline are very natural for him. He is not a guy that fades in the 3rd round or fades in the 5th round as he's out there in main events. He can hold up and he can push. I bring that to you because some guys have got to cut weight. They got to cut weight. My teammate Doug Lee in college, man, he could beat anybody in the country. They're talking about him versus Chael Sonnen. This was major news. He was ranked number 2 behind Chael. It was one of these things, but he had to get to a certain weight class. That weight class represented a byproduct of extra runs, extra conditioning. It was just one of these things. Kelvin doesn't have that. So, back up to the Ultimate Fighter. Told you it's a story that I love to tell, but I do love to tell this. Luke and I still will talk about this. When Kelvin comes on the Ultimate Fighter, he not only was the last pick, he almost wasn't picked. We were done. Jon had picked his team. I had picked my team, and it was a case where you look up and he's still, he almost wasn't picked. And you know what? He was fine with that. That didn't hurt his feelings or embarrass him at all. Nothing did. Nothing rattled him. Then it comes out, watching this guy fight. And just to get in the house, he had a very special fight. He had one of the great fights in the history of the Ultimate Fight, but it was just to get in the house. It didn't have a placement that really put him where he needs to be. The gentleman who he beat, and he barely beat him, it was super close, belonged in the UFC. Really, the expression broke my heart. That guy deserved a chance, skill-wise. Set that aside. It gets revealed he's the youngest contestant in history. Didn't know that. But young guys that are raised properly also know their place. Truly. I've been on teams. I had an entire team disrupted because we had a freshman come in and try to be the captain. And while you might think that sounds like good leadership, it is not. There's a place. There's a role, right? Just is. You come into a team that has senior leadership, you're not familiar with it, and on day one, you're trying to huddle the guys up and bring your hand in and give a little speech. You're a freshman. That's the opposite of leadership. And I'll just bring for you, guys that are raised right agree with what I just said and understand it. Guys that aren't raised right aren't even really that clear on what I just talked about. Truly. So, but I came up with a great Dave Sandville, who would speak about that senior leadership. Not baddest dude in the room, not who can kick whose ass, not who's been doing this more, not whose jacket's got more stars on it. Talk about senior leadership. He believed in that. My freshman year of high school, I was on just a fantastic team. We had a gentleman named Ryan McKay was our captain. We voted for him. He was the captain. He was JV. He lost his wrestle-off match. He wasn't varsity. He was JV. He was a senior, and he was the right guy. He still, to this day, is a leader in the community. You know, you usually have guys like that. Gravitate, they're going to set a good example. And I bring this to you because it's very relevant why Kelvin fit in so well. He was the youngest guy. Turned out he was the best fighter. But he never flexed, right? He never walked down the hallways as a freshman and tried to puff up in the senior hallway. Even if he could handle it, he showed them the respect. It's very relevant to understanding Kelvin. We would have practices. I would look to Kelvin at the end of practice. I asked him one time. I was giving a speech. I was talking to the guys. I got a flow guy. Look, forget everything I'm talking about. I can't remember a thing that I'm talking about. Did you just go change? I don't remember him leaving the room. And we had a rule that you don't leave the room without asking a coach. In exchange, the coach will always say, yes, you can go. We just need to know where you were. We didn't have a whole bunch of rules. You know, we didn't really have guys under our thumb. As I tell that story, you think it was micromanaging. That was actually one of the very few rules. Hey, if you're not at practice, let us know. We won't give you a hard time. We'll support. Let us know, though. Don't leave this room without, hey. Look at Kelvin. I said, did you just go change? He's completely dry. I'm looking at Uriah. I'm looking at Luke. I'm looking at Thor. Right? I mean, I'm looking at Jimmy. These guys, they look like they jumped in a swimming pool with their clothes on. Their drip puddles are down at their feet as I'm talking to them. I look over to Kelvin. He's as dry as I said, did you go change your clothes? He said, no. We'd had this whole practice. He didn't break a sweat. I don't even know how that's possible. We're in a warehouse in Las Vegas, which is located in the desert, for goodness sakes. And it would always be things like this. Kelvin left. He left one day practice. And he's 6 pounds over, but this is after practice. You got to understand that. That's an expression. I'm giving you a big detail there. After practice, he's 6 pounds over. So that's not as fresh as a daisy, 6 pounds. However many he got off in practice, and you wouldn't know. You wouldn't know how many times he took a trip to the water fountain. You wouldn't know if he popped in the sauna. You wouldn't know quite what he did. He still got 6 to go. All right, that is very normal and very doable, but that's going to make for an uncomfortable evening. That's going to involve a level of discipline. Fine. That's what this is, right? So they get to the house, and Luke comes down. Luke's one of the leaders on the team. And talk about Kelvin was the last pick. Luke was the first pick. Kelvin's got a frying pan. It's got about this much oil in it. Just Wesson oil. He just dumps about this much Wesson. And he's got over here, he's grating up a potato. He's running a potato up and down on the cheese shredder there. And Luke just sees the events and says, what are you doing? And Kelvin says, I'm fueling my body. He then goes, that's the exact quote, I'm fueling my body. He says it like that. He goes on to explain that he's got a big weight cut in front of him. And to get that weight off, he's gonna need energy. He's gonna need fuel. And he just proceeded to make himself a pile of potatoes and put it in. You gotta understand, one day before weigh-in, it doesn't matter if you ate salad or ice cream. If you ate a pound of salad or a pound of milkshake, it does not matter because your body's not going to process it. Right? If it's 9 o'clock at night and the weigh-ins are at 8 in the morning, your body's not going to process it. A pound's a pound. You can eat it in cotton, you can eat it in lead. It's going to be a pound. I'm just bringing that to you. It's just a funny thing, but this was Kelvin, right? He was young, and he was naive, and he was polite. He had these older guys that were looking out for him. And there was not a weigh-in. This is 185 pounds. There was not a weigh-in that wasn't by the skin of the teeth, and there was not a weigh-in that we had where he didn't have to come back. You know, you go the first time and then you got to come back. Whatever that means. Whether you go with your team, you got to get a little bit of weight off, or you just step off and you drop your skivvies and they pull the towel up. Whatever it was, he had to return to the scale every single weigh-in. So then he gets in to the UFC. He wins the tournament at 185. It is the toughest tournament in sport. Uriah Hall was in the tournament. Dana White didn't know what to do with Uriah Hall because he had never seen somebody come through the Ultimate Fighter that good, and he talked about putting him right into a title fight against Anderson Silva. Those words were spoken multiple times. I mean, this is hard. He wins it. That's the same tournament Matt Serra won, that Forrest Griffin won. It's the same tournament Josh Koscheck didn't win. It's the same tournament Rashad won. It's the same tournament Kimbo didn't win. It's the same tournament Robert Whittaker. I mean, do you understand? This is the Ultimate Fighter. It's as hard as it gets. He wins it at 185. He goes down to 170. How come? I wasn't consulted on this, but see, I'm a fan now. I got to give him back. They handed him to me, but I had to hand him back. Talk about he knew his role. He knew where he fit in. Very hard to do. Very hard to do. I had to give him back. They decide they're going to take him down to 170. So on his way to 170, he encounters Tyron Woodley, who turned out was the best fighter in the world. Kelvin missed weight by 8 pounds. He ends up in medical care. They IV him before they get to the scale. He damn near beats Woodley, who turned out to be the best in the world. I was talking about Johnny Hendricks a little bit ago. Kelvin beat Johnny Hendricks. Talk about Vitor Belfort has been champion of the world. Be in the Hall of Fame, might already be there. Not only beat VT, he stopped him. This guy doesn't need to cut weight from anybody. He just doesn't need to. He could go the other way to 205 if he given him fits. I mean, I'm just bringing this to you. Because why are we doing it, right? With anything, why are we doing it? Are there better matches there? Is there a better path there? Is there a better road there? Maybe it's like the Doug Lee story that I told you about, where it's a byproduct. You got to get down to this weight because it creates a lifestyle. BJ Penn leveled Dana White. Dana White was going to release him. He leveled, say, hey, whoa, hold on. I actually got something going on outside of here on a personal note. And this stops me from doing that. Dana understood, gave him another fight. He was even on an undercard, paid him all his big money, everything, put him on an undercard. Because he understood that concept. That's very real. I don't say that to embarrass BJ at all. Quite the opposite. I thought it was a very responsible thing BJ Penn to do, to level with him. Hey, I need this. That's great, right? That's what martial arts is about. And now we're going down to 170. And we know as we get older, we don't get smaller, unfortunately, right? Are any of us lighter now than we were in high school? It's one of those things. And I know he can do it. There's nothing within my tone that I'm meaning to say that Kelvin can't do it. I know he can do it. If he can do anything he sets his mind to. I'm sharing with you that we've come up with this idea 3 other times. 3 other times in the last 10 years, there has been press releases that Kelvin Gastelum is going to go to 170, and it didn't happen. I don't know why. The announcement was made. Mike Dolce was consulted. Ali had made the fight. I mean, this was happening. John Morgan presents. But it didn't happen. And I don't know if that's what's happening here. Because the one thing that we don't have is an opponent. And oftentimes when an athlete has crossed all his T's and dotted all of his I's and says he's changed in weight classes, he's already done it to the point that he has a bout agreement. And we're not there. And I'm very open to it. By the way, I'm very open to it. He's got an opponent. He's got an idea. I'd like to hear more about these things. I really would. If he's got a way and a plan, a dissension plan for weight management that is quite possibly better now with his maturity, the story that I told you about fueling his body was a decade ago. Got the right, like anybody else, to learn things over time. I'm open to it. I would just remind Kelvin, he is the winner of the toughest tournament in all of sport at 185 pounds. He was the winner, not just of fight of the night, fight of the year for the championship against Adesanya at 185 pounds. He stopped Vitor Belfort. He almost stopped Chris Weidman. I can go down memory lane here and at 185 pounds. I like him at 185 pounds. I'm leaving it at that.